Henry Thrun finished his first full season in the NHL. What lessons can we take from this long season?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker of the Reef. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network, where we cover your team every day. If you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be doing our season discussion, season review of Henry Thrun, defenseman, our first defenseman that we've done. So we've done the Lund line already. Now we're going to kind of look at some of the guys on the blue line this week. We're going to talk about Henry Thrun, kind of look at his numbers, his stats, talk about his development, if we can learn any lessons from the Mario Ferraro development, and then what's next for Henry Thrun. So before we get to all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with your friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. So let's discuss one Henry Thrun. We'll start by looking at his statistics. So in 51 games this year, Henry Thrun scored 3 goals, had 8 assists, 48 shots on goal, played an even 20 minutes of average time on ice, 42.85% Corsi 4. So that means when Henry Thrun was down the ice at 5v5, the Sharks had 42.85% of the shot attempts. Goals for 36.11. So when Henry Thrun was on the ice, the Sharks scored 36.11 of the goals that were on the ice. Henry Thrun is an RFA, a 10.2 CRFA. We'll talk about this here a little bit at the end, kind of in the what's next. But just so what that means basically is Thrun is technically an RFA, but he did not have enough games under his belt to get an offer sheet. So the Sharks have exclusive rights for him. We'll talk about what that means going forward. But with him signing with him being over the age of 22, signing his contract last year, which burnt the first year. So he signed his ELC at the age of 22. That means his ELC contract is only for 2 seasons. And then the last season, the 22-23 season, he burned a full season in the 8 games that he played. So this was his kind of the rest of that ELC contract. So we'll talk about that a little bit more going forward. But Henry Thrun is not going anywhere. Like, unless the Sharks don't want to have Henry Thrun on the team, Henry Thrun will be a Shark. No, the other team cannot offer sheet him. So we can just, I know there's plenty of Henry Thrun fans, including myself out there. Henry Thrun is will be a Shark next year. So, all right. No athletic pro card from him, which is a little weird, especially because he played 51 games. But his evolving hockey card, 11th percentile overall, 20th percentile offense, 18th percentile defense. Played first pairing minutes at 5v5 at 881 minutes. This year also played 41 power play minutes and 86 penalty kill minutes. Was, I think, defensively, well, you can compare this to some other players on the Sharks, and you'll see much lower scores in the percentiles and stuff. But power play was a positive power play player in a small amount of time. Did a good job of not taking penalties this season, and I think was a positive on the shorthanded despite only getting 86 minutes, which felt low. I felt like Thrun played more penalty kill minutes than that, but again, we'll kind of talk about that here a little bit more. So interesting with Thrun, his line is his partner. So 40% of the time at 5v5, so 364 minutes, he played with Jan Ruda. Combined, those guys, 12 goals for, 18 goals allowed. Corsi 4 was at 43.5%. His next, so again, that's 40%, almost 41% of his time at 5v5. He played with Jan Ruda. We'll talk about his partner kind of going in the middle segment here, maybe the ideal partner. Addison, he played with 168 minutes, mostly kind of at the end of the 5 goals for, 14 allowed. So a little bit tougher there defensively, at least with the goals given up. But Corsi for 44.4%, so a little bit positive there. Also played 11, almost 12% with Kyle Burrows, where they were pretty kind of even, 5 to 6 for goals for and allowed, with a Corsi for 40.7%. Played 76 minutes with Vlasic, 0 goals for, 3 allowed, 36.7% Corsi for. Then Mario Ferraro played with almost 70 minutes, 4 goals for, 2 allowed last season. Corsi for 47.3. And then you also play with Nikita Hochuk, who of course is not on the team anymore, and they struggled in their limited time of almost 31 minutes together. So I think kind of, reviewing Henry Thrun's season this year, again, right, as I've said with all the forwards, and I'll say the same thing with all the defensemen and every player, the numbers, especially the analytics, are going to skew negatively because this team was bad defensively, right? And Henry Thrun, defenseman, you could say part of the problem. You could also say he was in the first full season in the NHL, and he, to be fair, he got his teeth kicked in, right? And that's going to happen, right? Very few players kind of walk in defensively and are amazing, and it does happen. But again, Henry Thrun, former 3rd-round defenseman, played full 4 years in college. I don't expect, it's not like he's a, top 10 pick kind of walking in. Like, Thrun is a developmental piece, right? It's going to take some time, but I still think though, overall, you have to be positive feel pretty good about at least Henry Thrun's direction. We'll talk more about that in the middle segment here, kind of his direction, kind of lessons from Mario Ferraro and stuff. But I feel like though you found I think a player who's going to be a quality defenseman for you. And he got thrown into a lot of different situations this year, right? Playing on the power play, playing on the penalty kill, played, of course, a lot of 5v5 time in which the Sharks were down in most of those times. But again, I think, though, these are all learning lessons for Henry Thrun. And you saw glimpses and flashes of the offensive skill. You saw glimpses and flashes of the defensive skill. You also saw lapses of, the defensive skill and learning moments from that. And again, like, the defense, right, takes a while to learn in the NHL level, just because of how skilled, how fast the forwards are, right? Like, it just takes a while for it's a reps thing, right? You need to get more and more reps from him. And I thought he adapted well. And I think, again, got his teeth kicked in, but I think it's going to be one of those learning lessons for him. And I expect Thrun to kind of make a nice jump next year. And I think a big thing will be trying to find the right partner from Thrun and keeping some lessons in mind from Mario Ferraro's development, and kind of, the what not to do, as Mario Ferraro, who's been very much a hot topic of among Sharks fans. Is he good? Is he not good? Like, what's happened? And I think, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think the Sharks failed in Mario Ferraro's development. I think there's some definite lessons that the Sharks can kind of take from Mario Ferraro and apply those to Henry Thrun, especially as two former college players. Ferraro was a 2nd-round pick. Thrun was a 3rd-round pick. Or was Thrun a 4th round? Anyway, Thrun was a middle-round pick. What can you kind of learn from these guys? What can you learn from those lessons? And what can you make sure you do to maybe kind of protect Thrun a little bit more? So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right. So what can these Sharks kind of learn from the Mario Ferraro development and make sure you apply? And I think one is kind of finding the right partner for Henry Thrun. And Thrun is an interesting player because he's shown a little bit of that two-way game, right? Where you can see maybe the offensive numbers weren't eye-popping, right, with 3 goals and 8 assists this season. But, right, I mean, none of the defense, again, this team was bad, et cetera, et cetera. But you've seen some of the flashes from it there, right? It was kind of running the power play at spots, especially at the end of the season when Kalen Addison kind of got hurt / put in the doghouse / kept getting kicked out of games. But I'm curious to see like the right partner for Thrun. And we partnered with Jan Ruda last year, who's much more of a stay-at-home defensive defenseman. I'm curious to see what would happen if Thrun played and he played, we saw the Kalen Addison, who's a bit more of a transitional, bit more offensive oriented. They had some good underlying numbers, but again, all right, your defense, your whole job is to not let the other team score. And they gave up, they gave up 14 goals in their 168 minutes. Again, plus minus not the biggest indicator because there's so many things that could go wrong on a play, but they did provide like solid Corsi 4, 44% Corsi 4 numbers. Like that is not the worst in the world, especially on a team that's, again, is very bad. I don't know how many times I have to mention how bad this team was. But like, I'm curious to see what would happen with the right kind of partner for Henry Thrun next year, and whether it's I think it's just kind of trying to define the role for Thrun. Are you going to be more of the defensive defenseman? Or are you going to be more of the offensive defenseman between the two? And if like Ty Amberson, who is much more of a kind of defensive defenseman, played really well before he got hurt. Like that's a potential pairing where maybe you let Thrun explore his offense a little bit more, while Emberson kind of maybe plays more of a little bit of the defensive mind there. Again, Thrun, I think, is more than capable of playing his own on defensively as well. Not like Henry Thrun's going to turn into Erik Karlsson or anything like that, but maybe that's a potential pairing that you're looking at. I'm also curious if, we saw Mario Ferraro like that blind played, again, small pairing, having to make one of them play on their offhand, get with them both being left-handed. I think we might make a little bit more out of that as fans, having guys play on their offhand. These guys are professionals. It's not like they haven't had to play on their offhands at some point in their career and development, right? But I think finding the right partner is going to be huge for Thrun, and I think it's defining the role, and whatever coaching staff comes in, kind of defining the roles for these guys. And two, I think kind of in the Mario Ferraro development plan of lessons you've learned from Mario Ferraro is not asking too much too soon. Okay. And I think that's been poor Mario Ferraro's problem, and is you look at kind of what happened, right? When Mario Ferraro first joined this team, like he was part of a, it was in the 2019-2020 season, right? You had Vlasic, who was still playing okay-ish. You had Brent Burns, you had Erik Karlsson, and then you had kind of Mario Ferraro, and now you look, right, Vlasic is nowhere near the same player. Burns and Karlsson aren't on the team anymore, and Mario Ferraro's had to pick up a lot of that slack. And Mario Ferraro, I still think is like a solid second pair defenseman, or really, really good third pair defenseman on like a playoff or like a championship quality team. But he's a Sharks #1 defenseman because they just don't have any other options. And Ferraro has had to play a lot of tough minutes in that time, especially when you're playing with an Erik Karlsson. When you have an Erik Karlsson on your team or Brent Burns, and Burns definitely plays his fair share of penalty kill minutes and stuff. But Karlsson, right? Karlsson was tasked to generate offense for the Sharks, especially after the Brent Burns was traded. But Ferraro has been the guy who's really had to kind of pick up the slack and play a ton of penalty kill minutes and you know, play a bunch of these like kind of crunch time minutes for the Sharks. Granted, there hasn't been a ton of these crunch time minutes, but still, right, he's been kind of the guy. And I think for Thrun, again, I understand the like you want to utilize him and stuff, but you have to kind of keep that in mind of like, don't ask too much too soon from Henry Thrun in his development. And again, I think they've done a better job of kind of insulating with some of these other guys. You know, I know Matt Benny missed a good chunk of the season, but your Kyle Burrows, your Jan Rutta, some of these other guys who have played way more penalty kill minutes, right? That's kind of what kind of the area that you're looking at is having to play a lot of these kind of penalty kill minutes. Give them a taste of it, right? Kind of dip him in, let him get some, you know, if it's as a second pairing defenseman, which I think the Sharks did a good job of this year, right? Looking at the penalty. So total penalty kill minutes among defensemen, right? Ferraro played the most penalty kill minutes, and he played 243 of those. Then Jan Rutta was next at 204 in his 69 games played. Vlasic was third, and then Henry Thrun was fourth, followed by Burrows, Matt Benny, who played a ton of them before he got hurt. Hochuk is not on the team anymore, and then Ty Emberson. So Kalen Addison played 133 of PK this year. So right, you're getting him kind of ready, but you're not kind of overdoing it from him. So in comparison, the 1920 season, that was Mario Ferraro's first year. I'm just pulling up the penalty kill minutes, right? You still had Brent Burns on that team and stuff. But Mario Ferraro that year kind of played 51 minutes, right? Kind of in the same boat, 51 minutes that year in 60 games. And again, you had Brendan Dillon on that team. You had Karlsson, you had Brent Burns, you had Vlasic, who was still, doing Vlasic things, at least somewhat near Vlasic things. But then that next season, right, that second season for Mario Ferraro then jumped to second on the team behind only Brent Burns, and they were only separated by a minute and a half. So he kind of really took over there, and then just continued to play more and more penalty kill minutes. Again, I know penalty, but I'm harping on the penalty kill, but those are those like tough minutes for a defenseman, right? Where you have to be, you're outnumbered, it's in your own zone, you have to be kind of perfect, or else it's going to lead to a goal. And those minutes are tougher than I think normal 5v5 minutes, at least for the most part. So I'm curious to see what the plan is for Thrun. If you continue to maybe shelter him a little bit next year, and then kind of hopefully with more talent on the team, again, just don't ask too much from Henry Thrun too quickly. I think that's kind of the big thing for him. But otherwise, though, we'll kind of talk about what's next and if he's still kind of on track. I still believe Thrun is going to be a really good player for the Sharks going forward. Again, as long as I think finding him the right partner, defining his role, finding him the right partner, and again, don't ask too much too soon from Henry Thrun like we saw with Mario Ferraro. So we'll talk about what's next. We'll talk about his potential contract, kind of what that might be looking like here in just 1 second. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. And what you're saying, flag on the play, delay of game, puck over glass. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you can work together to build up each other's boards. There's more you can win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with your friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces for traveling boards with hilarious emojis for taunting friends. When you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton, including unique mini games like digging for treasure or robot pachinko machines. And there's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and download it for free on Apple Play on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. All right. Mario Ferraro. Henry Thrun's next contract. So he has a qualifying offer. This is from Cap Friendly of $874,125 for next season. So that is the offer for the Sharks. Kind of that's the base of what he would have to get. I'm curious to see what Mike Grier does for Thrun, right? He's still going to have plenty of years on his RFA. Like, you can kind of play the RFA game with him. I don't expect like a long-term contract type of thing. Like, Thrun's not going to get like an 8-year extension right now, which I think would not be the smartest idea to do that. But I am curious to see if maybe they look to try to kind of lock him up for maybe a couple seasons, right? Give him a little bit of that security. And I kind of look at the Knyzhov contract, right? The Sharks gave him a 2-year contract at $1.25 million. The one thing about that, though, is remember, when Knyzhov cleared waivers, a little bit of it stays on the cap. It's like $100,000 that stayed on the Sharks cap when he was with the Barracuda. Good thing though is Thrun is still waivers exempt, so like he can, even once he signs his next contract, he just hasn't played enough games where he can continue to go kind of pass between the Sharks and the Barracuda right now, so you don't have to worry about that aspect from him. But I'm curious, especially with him making $912 this year. I wonder if they kind of maybe bump it up to like $1 million or 1.125, which again was the contract that Nikolai Knyzhov got. So Knyzhov again still will be on the cap next year, but I'm curious to see if maybe that's kind of where the Sharks head with Henry Thrun this offseason. Because again, I think he played really well, and I know the numbers stink and et cetera, but given the situation that the Sharks were in, given kind of how tough the minutes, he played a lot of minutes, was starting to kind of produce, I think, especially at the end of the season there. I think things were starting to kind of click for him. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a 2-year deal at like $1.125 million. And again, Sharks have a bajillion dollars in cap space that they're probably not going to spend on a lot of big name guys. So I could see maybe kind of taking care of, paying a guy like Thrun, and he's still going to be an RFA after that contract is done anyway. So, and then you can maybe have by then he'll be 25. You can have another conversation of, okay, where does Henry Thrun fit into our long-term plans? And over the next 2 years, if he continues to develop, great. He turns into a really good kind of 4 or 5 defenseman for you, right? Becomes maybe like an ace penalty killer, whatever it is that Thrun kind of, you figure out his role for. And then you can have a conversation in 2 years. But we've seen kind of this approach before with, Fabian Zetterlund, right? Zetterlund got 2 years at like under $1.5 million. That contract looks like an absolute steal, right? Nikolai Knyzhov got this deal. Nikolai Knyzhov has quickly been passed by some other guys. And, again, most of it you can bury in the minors. Again, a small amount that's on the Sharks cap right now. But Knyzhov also coming off 2 years of injuries compared to Henry Thrun, who's been relatively, has been healthy so far with his time in San Jose. So I think that's probably kind of the route that they go. 2-year deal at that situation. But I think though what's next for Thrun is kind of like I talked about, right? What do you want Henry Thrun to be? Do you want him to be like a solid two-way defenseman who maybe can chip in on the power play occasionally, can help out on, maybe be that second unit PK guy, help provide some secondary scoring. If you want that, then again, maybe finding a guy like, playing with a guy like Ty Emerson, who we expect to be healthy next year. Like that type of fit goes together. Do you want him to maybe learn from Mario Ferraro a bit more? Mario Ferraro, who we'll talk about either this week or next week, and kind of do his season review as well. Like having Ferraro, who had his best offensive season, but again, is having to play a bajillion minutes a night because the Sharks don't really have anybody else to kind of take the load off there. I think that I'm curious to see if that Thrun Ferraro pairing, which small sample size, but played pretty well so far in that season, this season. And then maybe with a new coach and a different defensive system, you can maybe see these guys thrive a little bit more. So, but yeah, I think that overall we got to give Thrun, give him the praise for hanging in there in a tough season. And I think the big thing is, again, what do you want Henry Thrun to be going forward? That's the big question. Mike Greer, whatever this coaching staff that comes in needs to kind of answer for Thrun in his future, and what to kind of expect from him. So, but yeah, Thrun, I'm very bullish. I think he's gonna be good. Right. I think it's bullish. Anyway, I think Henry Thrun's going to be good. Again, he's not going to be like Adam Fox or something like that, but I think Henry Thrun is going to be a really like Justin Braun 2.0, something like that, where it's just really awesome, does his job really well, maybe not as heralded as some of the other guys, but he's just going to be a quality defenseman who's going to play a bajillion games in the NHL. So that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow to get you guys ready for the draft lottery. So we'll kind of go through that. We'll talk about kind of, again, best case scenario, worst case scenario, talk people off the ledge if we need to, in case the Sharks don't win it. And then we'll be back on Wednesday with the Tuesday night's episode will be Wednesday's episode. We'll do a reaction to the draft lottery. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryHole. Until tomorrow, bye, friends.